I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Cindy Atwood, and I'm with CVTA, and I'd like to welcome you to the Lunch and Learn webinar. And our first presenter is the chairman of the technical committee, Tim Norland.
Thank you, Cindy. Thanks for joining us today for the second CVTA Technology Committee Lunch and Learn webinar. I'm Tim Norland. I'm chairman of the committee and a member of the CVTA Board of Directors, and I also lead the driver recruiting team at Rail Transport in Marshfield, Wisconsin. The goal of our committee is to present our membership with the latest in technology advances that can improve entry-level driver training. These webinars will provide you information on technology and products that can help you and your school provide more efficient training and help your students be better prepared for the technology they will experience in their professional driving career. So just a reminder, it's the policy of the CVTA, and it is the responsibility of every association member to comply in all respects with federal and state antitrust laws. No activity or discussion at the association meetings or other functions may be engaged in for the purpose of bringing about any understanding or agreement among members to raise or lower or stabilize prices, regulate, allocate, encourage boycotts, foster unfair trade practices, assist monopolization, or in any way violate federal and state antitrust laws. It's now my pleasure to introduce the moderator for our second webinar, which is titled Not Your Father's Simulator. Tim Kordula from Skinner Transport. Tim?
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. As Tim said, I'm Tim Kordula. I'm a longtime member, actually the last several years of CVTA. Currently hold a position as Vice President of Risk Management here at Skinner Transfer Corp. And really excited to moderate. This is my first webinar I get to moderate, and I'm really looking forward to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some introductions, and I'd like to start with Kimberly Giles. She's currently the trade show account manager for L3 Harris Driver Training Solutions. L3 Harris is a company best known for its focus on safety. Simulation-based training is a proven tool for pre-hire driver screening assessments, entry-level driver training, safety refresher training, and post-remediation training. Kim's career began in public safety back in 1994 as an emergency medical dispatcher paramedic in Peoria, Illinois. Having seen many avoidable crashes and incidents, she realizes her passion for saving lives extends farther than just treating people after the event. If we can prevent accidents, then we really make a difference. Thanks, Kim, for being part of this webinar. Second, I'd like to introduce Enrique Marr. He joined ATS team in 2015 and is a lifelong proponent and advocate for simulation-based training, evaluation, and entertainment, from commercial driving, the remedial training, and motorsports. With 17 years of professional experience in the simulation industry, 7 of those years with advanced training systems, Enrique brings a spectrum of experience to the company. Enrique works closely with customers and potential clients to find the best and most efficient way to integrate ATS products and services into their current or future training programs, facilities, and marketing efforts. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Debra Quackenbush. She's the president and managing director of Virtual Excellence LLC, a consulting organization that provides guidance to global companies and organizations whose mission mirrors her mission of excellence in the integration and use of simulation or virtual reality solutions to promote road safety and safety outcomes for individuals, hospitals, rehabilitation centers, companies, schools, and government entities. As Virage's consultant and director of business development for the United States, Debra has helped Virage forge positive relationships in the commercial and municipal trucking industry, truck driver training and education industry, and the truck and bus safety research community. So with that, I would like to introduce Debra. And Debra, I'm going to go ahead and let you start talking about what you have to offer with what your company does, and we'll go from there.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tim. And I think we'll start with the next slide. Are you, should I advance them or do I have the ability to advance them, Cindy?
I can give you that ability. Hang on just a second, or if you want me to do it, I can certainly do it.
my purpose today is to talk to the commercial school industry, those private schools out there that are personally owned, privately owned, and talk about the integration of simulation and provide you with a business case. I think that one of the things I want to cover is a solid return on your investment in a simulation system. We want to talk about the flexibility and the training advantages that you would enjoy by integrating simulation into your business model. The various different increased business opportunities that are presented to you, and of course the proven results that simulation can offer you. Next slide.
There you go. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. As I said, there's a solid return on your investment. And the advice that I would give, my years of experience in the simulation industry and the integration into various safety programs and educational programs, is do your due diligence. Ask a lot of questions. Find the system that's going to fit your needs. And it's not always the most expensive system. It's not always the least expensive system. You have to do your due diligence. Ask your provider or potential provider for a ROA calculator tool, a tool for you to be able to measure your return on your investment. You have to know your current costs. I'm often surprised when people really don't know, and what a return on investment tool like that will give you is a really good snapshot of your costs. Things like insurance, your business registration, your fuel, the maintenance on your vehicles, including tires. The cost of your instructors. Ask your colleagues, and I think you'll be surprised at what you can do once you recognize your costs and then put that up against the costs of the simulator and find out exactly when that payback period will be. Many of the customers that I've dealt with have found a payback period in as little as 6 months, and also maybe about a year and a half. So know your costs and get that information about the return on the investment. Next slide. I'd like to talk about the flexibility and the training advantages. And I often say it's, one system, multiple vehicles without the purchase of those other vehicles. One system with the latest truck technologies. We all know that we're going into the era of all kinds of technologies being put on the trucks, and how can you as a business owner keep up with those technologies without the cost of purchasing a truck with all those technologies? Well, the answer is obvious. It's simulation, because we can place those technologies, lane deviation, speed control, all of the things, talking with the LMS systems. And we had the previous webinar about some of those technologies that are being put on the truck. Well, simulation can offer you a pathway to training on those systems without the cost of those vehicles. One system with a valid training curriculum to match the vehicle. If you are going to be training on various tractor trailer types, different manufacturers, different types of vehicle, which we will get into in a little bit, but those curriculum and the vehicle dynamics, one system matching those vehicle dynamics, again, without having to purchase those individual vehicles. I like to call it the transformer concept. And next slide. For instance, one example would be school bus driver training. We know that there's a bad truck driver shortage, but according to a recent study, which, you know, I am part of the Transportation Research Board, so I see all of the studies that go on about truck and bus safety. I'm on that committee, and every state has had one or more instances of driver shortage. As a matter of fact, last year in New England, they had to call out the National Guard to actually provide school bus driving for the students that were beginning school in September. And they need these drivers, and they need them fast. Not to mention, the EPA did a huge grant to encourage school districts to get electric buses, EVs. Well, they're different. And with simulation, using simulation accelerates the training without the need for the investment. It provides a safe, non-threatening environment for new learners. Many of them are women who've never driven these large vehicles. And school districts are really hungry to contract with organizations that can offer this training, so that because they are not equipped to do it. So this is a win-win business opportunity for you, your schools, the schools out there that could offer this. Next slide, Cindy. Now, there is snowplow driver training every year. Municipalities across the north, I don't have that problem, I'm in Florida, but across the north, they struggle with gearing up for the snow season. Many of our customers who have the simulation use it in the off season to recruit and to train new snowplow drivers, prepare for the winter, because those drivers that were driving snowplows in the summer, they're doing dump trucks, they're doing other kinds of equipment, and they have to be refreshed. And snowplow driver training is something that they really do not like, taking snowplows out in the summer to do the training, but yet they're looking to train new drivers and their existing drivers. Another business opportunity. And I think we got a little bit of a video. You just hit next. So these are the types of visuals that the individuals that are doing snowplow training. And there are some schools and municipalities that have taken the step and purchased the simulator because they recognize the value and the return on the investment that they've made, that they don't have to take these big vehicles out in the summer. Next slide. Solid waste management. Interestingly enough, both municipalities and private waste management companies need new and existing drivers. FMCSA just last year sent a report out that more than 100 garbage refuse truck deaths and more than 1,400 injuries, and these were the operators. A quarter of those killed were the sanitation workers. Simulation provides a safe environment to train and retrain. And by the way, by offering this, these jobs are good paying jobs. And I was speaking with one refuse company, and they said they're offering $30, $35 an hour for drivers, and they're having a hard time filling those slots, and because the training is not there. So they're looking for companies to provide that training, bringing on a CDL driver, teach them how to operate an automatic refuse truck, but also, you know, helping to shore up the CDL aspect, which both can be done on a simulation system. Next slide. Flexibility gives you for independent and group training, maximizing your training done in the class or on the road. If a student can learn, which we'll see a little bit later, some of the statistics in the simulator before you get on the vehicle, you're going to reduce your maintenance costs, and you are going to maximize the time you're going to be on the road. We're not saying it's going to replace it. So, you know, that is also a possibility down the road, but it is going to maximize the time you have out on the road. Some report that they've been able to shrink their training time by a week offering the simulation within their systems. And you'll notice I made a note there that student next, they have multiple simulators here, and the student is going about their business doing their training while there's a group training session going on. So it has that great flexibility. Next slide, Cindy. Increase your business, but what are you doing to attract drivers? Recruiting is not just the trucking industry's problem. We need to attract them overall to the industries, and obviously the studies show that to keep pace and attract the next generation, experience needs to meet their expectations. So ATRI just recently put out that in light of the concerns about critical skills, however, technology should be emphasized as supporting a driver's skill set and enhancing driver's skills rather than just making the job easier, replacing driver responsibilities. Obviously, they're talking about all technologies, but this applies to simulation, because I've had I revealed recently to the CVTA audience that I had a student call me and ask me if I knew in a certain area where there was a private school that person could attend that used simulation, because they felt that a company that used simulation was on the forefront of offering a better experience. And technology utilization was one of the major attractions for the young drivers interviewed by ATRI. So I think that right there, we have to do our part to attract that younger generation, because right now the average age of the truck drivers is, I think, around 46, and we lost a lot during COVID. So we need to attract those, and what better way than to advertise that you are using the latest technology for them to gain their CDL and other experience. Next slide, Cindy. Proven results, and it reduces costs. Okay, driving simulators for training and testing can reduce the costs and improve the efficiency. Now, research that has been done on specific curriculums shows that there is a transfer of training. We hear that all the time, but what does that really mean? It means that one-to-one, you are going to get the same experience in the simulator that you're going to get in the truck. But now, if you can accelerate that, and we find that basic skills can be learned 2.5 times faster in the simulator than it can in the truck. So if you can accelerate that learning, that's going to reduce your costs, because again, before putting them in that truck, they are going to have a full, rich experience on the simulator and not having the cost of actually being in the truck. In addition, they can practice those testing components of the CDL test. If the simulator has the layout on that, they can actually practice those tests, and it gives them some real experience and confidence. Next slide. So what I'd say is, only with simulation can you have a fleet of all types of trucks, school buses, commercial buses, snowplows, all types of vehicles. You can have the latest technologies like automatic transmissions, the new automated manual, AMT transmissions, along with the manual transmissions, without buying a vehicle with each of those transmissions. You can have the latest driver assist technologies and lane departure warnings, and all of the technologies in a truck in your classroom. And I always like to say, you get an additional instructor that doesn't take time off and is very objective and a consistent trainer. They don't take vacation, you don't give them benefits, and yet they are a consistent and objective trainer, so that all of your students are equally applied instruction over the time they're with you. And you can save real money on fuel, maintenance, and other operating expenses. Next slide. Here's the contact information for Virage. The corporate headquarters is in Montreal, and we've got two great individuals in the U.S. along with myself that are here to meet any of your training needs. Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, CVTA audience.
Deb, thanks, Deb. That was great information. One quick question I have for you is you mentioned a lot of, expanding on business and the simulators have the capability of the different types of vehicles. How difficult for those listening, say for instance, I'm a CDL school and maybe I want to offer that on the weekend to sanitation or snowplow drivers. How easy is it to switch the software around? In other words, go from a tractor trailer to a sanitation or to a snowplow, real quick for the audience.
Oh, Tim, that's a really great question. Those are software things. And so basically we always like to say it's, the 2 clicks. You turn the system on, you get it ready, and then you go in and you choose the vehicle. And when you choose the vehicle, it automatically would choose the vehicle dynamics and everything that goes with the vehicle operation. And then you click on the training program that is built specifically for that operation, whether it's an operational training program, a defensive driving program, and there you have, and then you launch the program. So it is not really that difficult. And the other side of that is that a lot of times, I can only speak my experiences, these programs are available to be put on the system in demonstration mode. So I always like to say, try before you buy. So you can go out, show a potential contract, municipal or even a small trucking company, a school district, bring them in, show them portions of the program that you offer before, and enter into a contract before you even have to get those programs onto your system. So it's really a very easy process, and I think you'd be really surprised that the utilization rate of not only the simulator, but your overall attraction of customers to your business will increase.
Fantastic. That is great. And again, thank you so much. I'm sure there'll be some more questions as we get through everybody today. We're going to go ahead and move on with Kimberly from L3. So Kimberly, screen's all yours.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. One of the things that we found in our training programs was the need for pre-trip inspection. I know that quite a few of the trucking conferences that I've been to, they really, really strive that pre-trip inspection, not just on the truck, but on the driver as well. So what a great way to talk about it in a classroom environment, the importance of taking care of yourself and taking care of your vehicle. Next slide. So I will tell you that before I started working in simulation a few years ago, I would never have touched a VR equipment. I would have no idea where to go. But then I kind of wrapped my mind around it, that this is where everything is going. So let me give it a try. And I was surprised at how easy it was to use. And I'm not a gamer. I don't pretend to do any of those, but I think that we can all agree that the world that we're living in right now we're going towards AI. So now VR is kind of that next step up into that area. We've been using the VR for quite a while, had a lot of great feedback from people that have been driving a truck for 20 years or people that are going to take their CDL exam. So VR program, it offers a cost-effective VR training system for commercial drivers to do proper vehicle inspections. It's going to be the multi-point vehicle inspection criteria outlined by the AAMVA and FMCSA regulations. So we like to say that it's a way that the student gets involved with the classroom, and there's a classroom involvement with the pre-trip inspection. Every time they hear somebody using all of the terminology and going from spot to spot and zone to zone, they retain that information. Repetition is the point of learning. So next slide. So is VR right for everybody? I think there's a place for it, for sure. VR is a training and teaching aid, not a curriculum replacement. Everybody's going to have their own curriculum. Every school is going to have their own teaching method that's working for them. But as we bring the younger people in to have the VR, just kind of pointing out something that Debra had said is that the technology brings people in. People love simulation. They love VR. They love the tech. And if they, if they don't like all of the, I don't want to put those goggles on, there's still a method in the VR equipment that they don't have to wear the goggles to do the pre-trip inspection, and they're moving along the truck and they see everything that everybody else wants to see as well. Normally a trainer is present or an instructor, however you have your training set up. The interaction is where you really begin to see the results. I have a school out in California that purchased 3 VRs actually for 3 different classrooms, and they projected up onto a large screen so that everybody is watching. So when the VR starts, you can simulate all of the faults that you want everybody to address. If there's something that your folks are missing in the pre-trip inspection, then we're really going to focus on that. The instructor controls the inspection. The instructor sets all of the faults. The instructor guides where they want the student to be. 5 students can go through it. The instructor doesn't have to be right there. The 5 students are helping each other. There's something to peer-to-peer learning that has been proven to be most effective. We're all competitive by nature. I mean, I think that's a given. So if you have 2 students doing the same inspection and one of them finds something else that the other one doesn't, the next time that guy's going to be looking for that. So, but this is also, again, with repetition, it teaches the process and starts the learning. I think we can all agree that anything that you're doing, if you have a process for doing it and you follow your process, this is where it's really going to come into play. But virtual reality training is for entry-level drivers as well as veteran drivers. A lot of veteran drivers become very complacent day to day on that pre-trip inspection. They miss the basic things that they just look right past. But there's also a time and a place that we can instruct them to reduce their out of service time. So if they go and they get stopped by that trooper and they're inspecting their vehicle, and this is, they have X problem, but they have Y problem. Well, now their vehicle may be out of service. Well, now the company is losing money. It's definitely the return on investment for hours out of service are definitely going to trump that. So, and Debra had mentioned that we can kind of customize it. We can do about any different vehicle that you want. All of us in simulation, I think we've definitely heard from everybody the need for customization. It doesn't do any good to teach somebody who's going to be driving a dump truck to learn on a semi-trailer. Granted, they're going to have to learn on that semi-trailer, but they have to know the dump truck as well. Next slide. So some of the benefits of VR training I've kind of touched on already. You're going to have some reduction in your training cost. The accelerated speed to proficiency, that is true with any point of simulation. Simulation has just really taken off in the last probably 10 to 12 years. And it really cuts down on how long you have to spend behind the wheel with a student. Now, granted, you are going to go behind the wheel. We're not taking that training part away. But if we can teach backing, if we can teach shifting, if we can teach good decisions to be made, then we're going to save those vehicles that you're using. We're also going to save your transmissions. The VR, though, with the pre-trip inspection, you can't necessarily simulate an oil leak on your truck without actually having an oil leak. Well, in the VR world, we can. And they're going to have to get up there and they're going to have to look with their flashlight, and they're going to see everything. They're going to see how that 5th wheel hitch is hooked up. So a higher degree of classroom safety. I I think that's more true with driving simulation. However, there is a big push for the safety as well. When you're talking about a truck of that size, anytime you're crawling underneath it and looking at it and everything, you know, and you're doing it repetitively, you're gonna increase your risk for issues that you could have. It's also usually a portable setup. You can use it anywhere, anytime. Recruitment, it's great to take to trade shows, trade fairs, I guess, if you want to say that, to try and recruit drivers into your schools, into your fleets, you know, what have you. People love to be involved. People love to be part of it. And again, going back to this, it's going to speed up the learning process, allowing students to learn in a controlled environment. All right, next slide, please. You're also going to have those measurable results. Just like you do on the driving simulator, you're going to have a paper, a form, a PDF file that can follow that student through the classroom environment. It's going to hit every zone, everything that the DOT inspector is looking for, state trooper might be looking for. It's going to hit all of those points so that you can judge how well your students are doing during each assessment. Okay, next slide. So, and then the question about, is it customizable? It absolutely is. It absolutely is. We have anything from semi-trailers, dump trucks, just flatbed trailers, anything that the company can think of, we can make a simulation for it, you know, and I think it's definitely beneficial to look into for any company that's training on pre-trip inspection, which we all should be. Next slide. All right, anybody?
So Kimberly, you mentioned a lot about, you know, reducing costs, and I can see definitely where that happens. I dealt with a company that used simulators. We had 2 of them, and it definitely reduced costs. Maybe touch a little bit on a instructor to student ratio. In other words, you know, when we're out there teaching, or when a CDL instructor is out there teaching, we try to do a lot of one-on-one, simply because we think we can get the point across. But with the simulators, kind of describe and tell us a little bit about an instructor-student ratio.
So I will say that the best instructor to student ratio that I've seen, and I actually did a couple years of snowplow training for our DOTs around the country. The best ratio was that 4-to-1. And I'll tell you why. Wow. Is because if you put an experienced guy, you know, I've driven before, I've got 20 years of experience, with a guy that may be trying to get a CDL, or maybe just received their CDL, you know, just taking the test and everything, they're going to feed off of each other. They're going to match together. They're going to share best practices. The new guy has the new training to bring to the senior driver. So there's a great matchup there that happens. I don't think we can ever replace the peer-to-peer instruction, because they are out driving every day. You know, that senior guy is out driving every day. His experience is going to be so beneficial to that new guy. And I don't think,
but like you said, having the 4 individuals, you know, feeding off each other with one good instructor, I think definitely, or I should ask you, in your opinion, how would that transfer then to the instructors that are out in the trucks? Do you think that would be a plus for sure?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. So are you saying,
so
if
you've got the 4 students that are in the simulator room, they're learning shifting, and they're kind of feeding off each other, seeing other folks excel, seeing the mistakes, trying to improve upon what they're seeing. How do you feel that would transfer then to the actual truck outside?
I really think you're going to have to go more one-on-one when you're in a truck outside.
Yep.
I think there's
but
a
I
lot.
mean,
You know, if you have 4 students and you're in a truck outside and you're teaching somebody how to shift, they're just watching. There's no
exactly.
with the simulator, or even with the VR, there's that constant, I don't know, don't want to say banter, because I think that's a poor word, but essentially there is, you know, they're building each other up, they're trying to make each other better, And they're going to remember that. They're going to remember that interaction way more than if they're just standing outside looking at a truck. It's a nice controlled environment. You know, there's so much they can do with that.
Fantastic, great points. Kimberly, thank you. Very great presentation. Enrique from ATS, the screen's all yours, my friend.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. Also, thanks to the CVTA. Tim, yourself, thanks for moderating. And thank you to our colleagues at Virage and L3. My name is Enrique Allen-Mar. I'm Director of Sales and Integration for Advanced Training Systems. And I'm going to go over some of the 5 benefits of simulation. Next slide, please. While all 3 of our companies differ.
Use a mobile device during flight. Now make sure the device is in airplane mode or the cellular service.
Excuse me, can someone?
Yeah,
mute
Brad,
the
could
line?
you please mute? All right, we got to
Yep,
mute
I
it.
think
Sorry about that.
Yep, he's muted.
Super. Well, all 3 of our companies differ in the approach and methodology. There are core benefits we can agree on. All simulators provide different benefits, no matter who the simulation provider is. We focus on muscle memory development, confidence building, oftentimes for the actual driver themselves, standardized training, as well as driver metrics. This brings us to our primary question. Next slide, please. What is the question? How do we train drivers to respond to a critical event when driving in the 21st century? But the answer is by leveraging simulation technology with 5 key points. Next slide, please. First key points. Actually, both my colleagues, Kim and Debra, mentioned this. Group training. The group training effect. Train many while training one. Regardless of the provider, the simulation-based training yields a 4-to-1 ratio. Kim was just talking about this. However, she was referring to the instructor-to-student ratio. Improve. To leave you with a quote on this slide, we like to say that competition breeds excellence. If Tim and I are counterparts in a simulation-based training environment, and Tim executed a backing maneuver in 3 minutes flat and scored an 80%, I want to introduce a sense of competition and say, I can do that same backing maneuver in 2.5 minutes and get a 90%. Competition breeds excellence. The next slide relates to driver metrics and improvement. There is no argument on results. Regardless of the provider, each simulator has a reporting feature wherein organizations can track driver progress, success, and failures. We can track everything down to fuel consumption, mistakes made. Oftentimes at ATS, we actually say, you don't realize how many mistakes you're making as a student until you're seated at a machine telling you all the mistakes you're making. As well, simulators lack bias. A simulator, unlike a driver coach or instructor, will never have a bad day or an off day. It conducts training in the same way and treats every student the same way, regardless if he's a veteran driver or she's a new entry into the industry. Finally, drivers have the opportunity to fail forward. That is, learn in a consequence-free environment. This is more holistic and improves driver confidence. We also want drivers, especially as we move forward as an industry, we don't want them to view simulation training as a punishment. We don't want them to think that they've done something wrong and they're entering the principal's office. We want them to see this as a sort of driver coaching opportunity, the things that they're doing right, the things that they're doing wrong, and how they can improve. Next slide, please. Leaving you with a quote on that last slide. What gets measured gets done. Number 3, consistency is key. The development of muscle memory. This is especially important in today's industry, is the development of distinct muscle memory responses. How do we train someone what to do in the case of a steer tire blowout? What is the muscle memory response for some of these critical events? In addition to the critical events, like I mentioned on the steer tire blowout, simulators also ease the burden on the wear and tear the transmission. You can actually see that in this this photo seen on screen. This student is actually going through a basic shift pattern exercise. My question to the group is, and again, I don't think any one of our providers feels this way, we're not trying to replace behind the wheel training, but we're trying to complement it. I started boxing last year, for example. The first 1, 2, 3 months that I was in that class, I didn't even get in the ring with an instructor. Why? Because that instructor's time is valuable. I need to be a prepared student before I'm ready to interact with that instructor. Why is the instructor sitting in the cab with the student saying shift into first, shift into second, shift into third? The student should already know that and have that baseline knowledge so that when they're interacting with that instructor is actually imparting on them more refined tactics. I want you to shift faster. I want you to double clutch deeper. Look out for this driver on your left. Those veteran types of advice. Likewise, every driver receives the same experience in a more distraction-free environment. I talked about this with the last slide. This leads to a more retention and more efficient style of training. To quote a former military instructor of mine, practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. We want to train for those different types of environments. Next slide, please. The fourth point is consistency is key. We are controlling variables, fourth point is controlling variables using technology and driving user engagement. Each unit, no matter the provider, affords trainers and companies the ability to expose driver to a variety of situations. I'm sure we all have different curriculum on winter driving, wet weather driving. We can control load shifts, as well as new vehicles that are coming into the industry. This is going to be an even greater topic as we grow and as we evolve as an industry, and more EVs or alternative fuel vehicles come online. I've personally seen this during the course of various pilot programs. How do drivers react to an electric vehicle that has a different range of driving, that it has regenerative braking, that it accelerates faster, and so on? We need to be, as an industry, we need to be proactive and enable, especially that next generation of drivers, enable them and cater to them with this type of technology. Leaving you with a quote from a former president: if we want America to stay on the cutting edge, we need young Americans to master the tools and technology that will change the way we do just about everything. Debra talked about this, in that there's very often students that will call us to say, what are the schools around me that actually have simulators and enable that? And I think that also CVTA members have experienced that as well. Simulators are a tool, another tool in your toolbox. Next slide, please. Super. Little bit slow on the loading. Number 5, give students the ability to fail safely. Train for real situations and hazards. On our final principle, we touched on this earlier, the ability to fail safely. Simulators, no matter the provider, afford companies and organizations the ability to expose drivers to situations too dangerous to train for in real life. Granted, while these events are happening in a virtual environment, the simulator primes the driver for those often critical moments. How do we safely and effectively and cost effectively train a driver what to do if they have a blowout? Likewise, let's evolve on that. How do we train them what to do when they have a blowout going downhill, when they have a blowout going downhill in the rain, at night, with fog? Often emerging question for these schools is, how do I use the simulator for these very, very dangerous concepts? Again, leaving you with a quote on this: we want to give students the ability and opportunity to fail safely. Final slide, please. Excuse me, next slide. Finally, I'd like to leave you with a final thoughts from one of the best movies ever made, Top Gun. I'm a little bit low on time, so I'm not going to show the video clip. However, let's just jump right into it and I'll explain it verbally. let's forget, for those of you that are familiar with the movie, let's forget that in Top Gun, the main characters are learning how to navigate, fly, and perform to their best ability in fighter jets. Let's forget that they're in fighter jets and remember that they're in a vehicle. Midway through the movie, what happens? The main character, Tom Cruise, is met with an instance where he loses control of his vehicle, doesn't know what to do. He's met with a critical event. And case in point, he has to eject out of the vehicle. He didn't have the muscle memory. He didn't have the opportunity to fail safely. And because of that, he has to eject out of his vehicle. It's very costly. And likewise, his best friend dies. Later in the movie, what happens? The same exact event happens. However, because Maverick had learned from his mistakes, it had cost him something previously, he was able to adapt. He hopefully received more training, more coaching, learned what he did right, what he did wrong, and applied them. At the end of the movie, he shoots down a opposing MiG, saves the day, and gets to go home with Kelly McGinnis and a very nice black Porsche. So that is a great case for muscle memory and how it works and how we're actually trying to leverage simulation and technology to develop that type of training. Thank you again to the group, and that is my presentation.
So Enrique, a lot of great, fantastic points here. I'm going to ask you, you gave us the 5 benefits over 5 slides on the on use of simulation. As far as marketing, give me 5 words that you would give to somebody that would market your product or any one of the products. I might shoot that out to everybody here. We've got a few minutes left. I've got a couple other questions, but how can you do that in 5 words? And that doesn't have to be a sentence.
Limited to 5 words. The marketing of simulators is actually becoming increasingly easy because of this next generation that is coming into the industry. Much of this, at least I'm speaking, putting my ATS hat on, we are embracing some of the effects of gaming and how much this sector has really come up and enabling those tools. I'm thinking of eye tracking, I'm thinking of VR, as Kimberly mentioned, head tracking, metrics, AWS services. We're actually enabling some of that. And so marketing, in a sense, has become easier because I think that entities are really seeing the value of this type of training, how cost effective it is, and how much it can actually, quite frankly, save lives.
Fantastic. That's great. That was more than 5. That was more than 5 words, but I'll take it. That's not bad. So we did have a question that came in through our chat, and I'm going to read this, and I'm going to actually pose this question to all 3 of you. Can the VR system be configured to mirror the vehicles that the company owns and the students test in? Debra, we'll start with you.
Well, the short answer is, of course, if in fact the provider is modeling the various truck models, for instance, like I mentioned, it could be a Mack, it could be a Freightliner, it could be anything that you've got in your fleet. And those are software types of developments within, and of course it depends on the company. If in fact they've got that library of vehicles, it should not be very difficult. Now, if you've got a very specialized vehicle, it may require some development, but generally, in today's world, we know the vehicles that are out there. And so, yes, it very well could, not only in the VR world, but in the simulation, in the truck simulation world, you can have the vehicle that is primarily in your fleet.
Fantastic. Kimberly, how do you feel about that? Can it mirror the vehicles that our schools are using?
I mean, absolutely, especially, talking simulation, there's hundreds of trucks on the simulators. I'll be honest, I'm not hugely familiar with Virage and ATS, but I know that depending on what vehicle you load onto our simulator, the glass dash, the gauges are all going to match what you're going to see in your truck. They're going to be specific to that. As far as the VR, let's be honest, it depends on how much money you want to invest and different things. Now, I'll be quite frank, in my experience, it's not as important to have that truck look like yours. It's important to have it structurally like yours and to behave like yours. We're trying to, teach good decisions and not necessarily as much cosmetic decisions. Now, the biggest thing that I've had feedback from VR, I'll discuss the VR because that's what I've been discussing here today. But the biggest thing that we had is when we first came out with our VR, we were limited because it was brand new. You didn't have all of that. With a great team of graphic designers and engineers, we were able to branch out from the semi truck and trailer to the dump truck to the flatbed. I mean, because we take all of the feedback from all of our customers and we just keep growing. And I know that Virage and ATS do the same exact thing. I know that we're not limited because we have people that stay on the cutting edge with all technology.
Fantastic. Enrique, feel the same way?
Yes, generally agree with everything. We actually, similar to using the ATS example, on the driving simulator, there's a library of different vehicles with different transmissions and different engines and drivetrains and so on. I think L3 and Virage is the same thing. Likewise, with our VR application and our virtual pre-trip, it's the same item. So yes, you can mirror the system, the vehicles that the students train and test.
Fantastic. With the evolution of technology, and we all see. Oh, Lou, I'm sorry. Did you have a question, Lou?
I have a more of a comment, if I may.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I found the title a little challenging to me. Not your father's simulator. I happen to be 82 years old. I think you were talking about me. I am sold on the advantages of simulating. My comment to you is some of you may know that in 2015, I was part of the entry-level driver training negotiating committee. And I can tell you at that time, believe it or not, some of us knew in 2015 that the rulemaking we were talking about was going to need to be constantly upgraded as we moved along. We even thought by the time we got to implementation, not knowing that it wouldn't be till 2022, that things would need to be changed. And simulators is part of that. So my thought to you, certainly in the simulator industry, CVTA has a great working relationship with FMCSA right now in terms of changes and needs and entry-level driver training. And they're also, asking training providers to give information about how much time is spent on different categories of training. And I think I would encourage you guys to keep on top of that, and tried through CVTA, I think, the need for the benefits of simulators should be included in any kind of future decisions about entry-level driver training. Thanks.
Lou, that is an absolutely fantastic point. I've been with a CDL school I actually started a CDL school and drove my first simulator at my first CVTA conference back in Clearwater, Florida. And I am convinced without a doubt that they have made a difference in the CDL school training, how fast we can get, and we're not looking at speed, we're looking at proficiency and how proficient we can get them by using the simulators. I'm seeing a lot of heads shaking up and down right now. Deb, Kimberly, Enrique. Deb, I know you wanted to say something real quick. Go ahead on that subject.
Well, I think that one of the things I want to say is that as much as people may have been disappointed that simulators weren't specifically included by name in the ELDT, it really, and we had a lot of people doing the comments for that. And what happened was they allowed it in the theory portion, and that really opened it up for everyone to at least consider adding this time saving. And to your point, Tim, it is time saving, but it is proficiency, because the other thing they also did with the LDT was set those goals. You have to be 80% proficient. And as much as we say there's not a definition to it, there is. It's, can you do the same task over and over again without you know, having to go back and learn? It's not just one and done. And that's what simulation offers the schools. And I agree with you, Lou, that we need to stay on top of that, because there should be a matrix that without simulation, it's going to take you X amount of time to get to the same level of proficiency. And with simulation, it's going to take you Y amount of time. And I think they can offer that as the compromise, because anytime you get government too involved in how, you know, private enterprise know, and I know what I'm talking about a little bit here, because in a former life, I was I was a legislator, and you know, it's just like, get out of the way. Let us help you define what it is we want to accomplish. And that is the highest level of skill in the, you know, amount of time. We were not disappointed that there was no time, because there's all different types of learners. And some learners can reach a proficiency much more quickly and efficiently than other learners. And if you put a certain amount of time on training, you may lose some people, because, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I've already done this. And then on the other hand, you also may lose some folks, because it's like, well, gee, I need more time. So that's kind of how I feel about you know, as they look for where are the best efficiency.
Just to add on to what Debra was saying,
Enrique, you're frozen up.
Yep, you're froze.
To cover their break. There's
You're freezing up, Enrique. We're getting down to the wire. We got a couple minutes left. If you try it again.
Just to add on to what Debra was saying, not just on the time and the training part, but also the life-saving part. If we can teach a generation of drivers to cover their brakes, slow down by 5 miles an hour, scan, and so on, if we save one life, then it's all worth it.
Absolutely. I can't say enough of everybody that was on this panel, the questions, the comments, I'm a firm believer. I'm with Lou on this. I think it needs to be involved in the CDL curriculum. Those of you who are out there, we could talk about this probably for another hour. I mean, I've got a couple other questions here, but we're just kind of running short of time. For those of you, obviously, CVTA members, you can reach out to CVTA, to any one of these vendors. We are, as far as I know, we're going to be doing this at the conference. So if you're not signed up for the conference, make sure you get signed up, because that's coming up in less than a month. I can't wait. I live in northern Wisconsin, and Florida's looking really, really, really nice right now. So Debra, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Enrique, it was a pleasure having a chance to meet you or Kim yet. I'm looking forward to meeting you. Lou, thanks for the great questions. And obviously, thank you to CVTA for putting on these technical committee, technical webinars. There's so much out there. As we all know, if we buy a cell phone today, by tomorrow it's outdated. So technology is ever evolving. So again, thanks to everybody on the call, and have a great day. Thank you.